guys, this is Nu-Trix and welcome to another video about making music on the iPad. Today we're talking about Shockwave. Shockwave is a cool, different synth for the iPad. If you want to see the full video about everything it can do, there's a really good video from Haq Attaq and the link should be up there. And that video is just great. It talks about everything, and Haq did a lot of sounds presets for the Shockwave. So take a moment to watch this if you actually enjoyed today's video. So without further ado, let's talk about why I like it. Well, there's many reasons why I like Shockwave. And by the way, there's going to be a draw of a free copy of Shockwave for those who wait until the end of the video. So Shockwave is cool because it doesn't use the same synthesis that everybody uses. Most of other synthesizers are using subtractive synthesis. Well, in Shockwave, there is no filter. No filter whatsoever, okay? Well, second one, it's purple. That's actually a cool color. You can change it to gray if you prefer a more traditional looking metallic color. It uses frequency modulation, so FM synthesis, multiplication of frequencies, phase modulation. It also uses amplitude modulation and ring modulation. So every type of modulation that I really like that create somewhat of a noisy, chaos, aggressive, some people call them digital, but they can be happening in the analog world and in digital world. So it's not linked to digital by itself, but it was made mostly popular in the 80s with the FM DX7 and Casio with the phase modulation. And even PV came out with some, actually do have, wait a sec, wait for it, you'll see. Even PV came out one day with a digital phase modulation synthesizer. Now you're going to say, what, PV? Yes, that's going to be coming in a few weeks and months. I have a couple of these oldie synthesizers I will do videos about, just to talk about what they are, what they sound like, and give you a little bit of history about synthesizers. And maybe some of them will be up for a draw also. We'll see. Let's go back to Shockwave. There's the first panel where you have everything you need. But there's also a second panel for a sequencer and other controls of manipulation. There's a very efficient modulation matrix, honestly, really, really efficient. One cool thing is this actually can be used as a MIDI generator. So there's also a section where you can use different type of generators, I mean envelope generators or LFOs or sequencer, and send it to the outside world through MIDI. So this can also become a modulator, MIDI modulator for something else in your studio. So that's pretty awesome. You know, I like this approach that it doesn't close on itself. It actually open to be part of a modulated world. And in that logic, you could look at this as being just part of a big modular synth, which is your studio. Okay, so let's actually go in and you'll understand what I like about the sound. So what do we have here? We have so the sounds are really, I like the sound. You can go browse, and if you look at the names, there's Haq. Well, Haq Attaq. Some of these sounds are really nice, soft, and others are just weird, noisy. And the reverb sounds really nice. Let's try a bass sound. It sounds, I mean, I like the sound of it. I like the roundness of it. Let's get out of here and look at the synth itself. From left to right, you've got two different oscillator 1 and 2, and the far section of left and right you have a generator on one side, and on the right you have effects and like delay and reverb. What is cool is you have in the middle the way to combine these two oscillators, and these two oscillators are basically the same. I mean, they're copied. They have exactly the same function. You have the brightness, you have. So you would say, well, stop. This is brightness, so this is filter. No. The brightness you have here is created from phase modulation. So it uses phase modulation on itself, kind of a feedback, to create that complexity of the sound. You have the wave of the sound itself, you have, I'm going to cut everything else so we just hear the raw sound. I'm going to cut these, cut that, cut this. So this is the original tone. Okay. By itself, this sounds really nice. It sounds rich. When you get to that section here, that's really cool. This one also. So it sounds really nice and round, and I'm at -1. Put it at 0. Okay, so that's your raw sound. You also have others like this one. This one. And the last one is just the noise. Okay? So these are the raw sound to work with. And same thing on the other side. Now, where this becomes interesting is you can combine them using the cross modulation between the two of them here. Do you use FM synthesis, FM multiplication? You have PM for phase modulation. You have amplitude modulation or ring modulation. So if you bring that up, that's where you hear that nice. One way to hear it correctly, let's say I'm bring that down, I'm going to bring this. I'm going to show you how to route stuff. That's a cool thing. You go into route, you press on the first one, the one you want. Like this one is the, how much modulation I want. I want it from envelope number 2. So I'm going to go like that. Hear that modulation right away. I'm going to get, if I change to FM, that's my original sound, and that's with the modulation. Let's actually go take this one. Amplitude modulation. And ring modulation. Then when you play with because you need to understand the logic of carrier and modulator in this case. The one is carrier. It receives the modulation, and the second is modulation. So if you change the second one, like the pitch, it changes how high the affecting source will be, or if you go an octave down, it also changes the way it's going to modulate. Same thing with the fact that if you want the second one to be bright, it will also change. If you put it 0, you hear that? This is, I like these type of, but if it goes bright, so that's the cool thing. Again, you can change the wave shape. If you say, well, the modulation I sent was too much, you press on mod here and list all the modulation you have and say, well, the modulation sent on the destination of modulation here, I'm going to bring that down. That's how much I want. That's the kind of sound you want. So that's what I really like, this kind of rich sound, but still kind of distorted sound. And this is specifically, you know, linked in my mind to FM, but it is also very good with phase modulation, amplitude modulation, and ring modulation. Like, they're not exactly the same. Now, to really understand what these are, let's take a little moment. Numerical audio, and they have an app called RM1. And RM1 is basically doing wave modulation, and you have the carrier and the modulation, and what you can do are ring modulation, and this is what they explain, and that's really a very fun way to understand what ring is. So you have a carrier that is at 265 Hertz, so that's the one receiving, the number one. The input is 110. So you're going to add them up and subtract them. So you're going to add them up, it's going to give you the 375, and you're going to subtract them, it's going to do 155. So the result of a ring modulation, that's a ring of a ring modulation, is not the original, but these new frequencies. So that's a cool one. Second thing, if you have FM synthesis, and you have the input at 130 and the carrier is 830, what you will have, so you're bringing input way lower than the original sound, so what you're going to have are kind of sidebands around the original. So at kind of minus and up. So 837 and minus 130, and 830 plus 130 plus 130. So it will create these sidebands around. So it will become richer around the original carrier, okay, the frequency of the carrier. So in this case, the number one. Then you have amplitude modulation. Amplitude modulation, what you'll have, you have 275 as a carrier. You're sending 110, so 110. What you get is the carrier plus the carrier minus the input plus the carrier plus the input. So you have the original plus the two add up. Whereas compared to the ring modulation, the ring, you did not have the original carrier on with it also. So in this case, you have the three of them, and that's exactly what Schockwave does with the Oscillator 1 and Oscillator 2. There's things that are misleading at one point, because you go, how does it work? So you get the trigger for the keys, but you can choose EC1. So all of these are kind of weird when you look at them first. Let's go back to keys for now. And you want to use the envelope. The envelope just have rise and fall, which is attack and decay. If you want sustain, you add the sustain. Then you have sustain. Okay, so rise and fall. And you can have it loop. So what I have now, you have the slow attack, fast fall, and then loops over and over again. So it becomes kind of an LFO if you want. But with the shape I have here. Take out the loop, add the sustain. It sustains as long as I want, but the other one's not sustained. Okay, the one really key thing about this whole thing is that you can use this other window here, second window, to control what's happening in the first one. So all of these you've got kind of, it looks a little bit bizarre. You've got logic type, you've got logic sources B. You can say it comes from the key or it's coming from the SQ1, which is a sequencer 1, a sequencer 2. You've got 2 lines of sequencer. And these can provide values, and depending on the logic of what it is it then and or, it will be the source of the decision. Here you can say, well, I want to create note, I want these notes to play. Stop that. I want these notes to play following a ability or an envelope. I want them to be, you know, simple and whole movement or free movement. It's more kind of modular thinking when you use this. So let's go back into the second window here. And what you have here is the 2 sequencer, the division for the sequencer 1, and the last steps. So from the first one to the number 8. Same thing here for the second sequencer. You can say you want to use them, the 2 in parallel. So one could be assigned to note, the other one could be assigned to pitch or to frequency, to modulation. Because again, if you go into the other one here and say, well, modulation matrix, route, I want this to be assigned to sequencer number 2. So now sequencer number 2 is controlling the amount of modulation. So this is pretty awesome. This is really efficient, really, this matrix of clicking wherever you want and just assigning it is really awesome. The only thing I wish I add, and it might be there, but I don't know how to do it, I would like to assign also the rise and fall to a modulation of somewhat. To say, let's say my fall could change over time by LFO control. But it's, I mean, I can't find a way to modify it. So there might be a way. If you know how, write it in the comments, please. The 8 steps, you can basically just choose the note you want or off, and the clock rate and the root key and the sequence. If you put it sequencer 116, it's going to be a full sequencer of 16 steps, and that's basically it. So let's actually listen to some of the sound I made in like an hour just playing around with it. You start from the templates, and the templates are really simple. You know, you got init sound, you got FM. So they already did some of the stuff for you to work with, you know. So I started to do a little distortion bass. And I like the evolution of sound. So in this case, what I have, if you look at the matrix, let's just for fun, you have LFO2 sent to phase modulation and envelope 2 sent to brightness. So it sends the brightness of the first one. So the first one becomes brighter. And if you want to see what's moving, you have X-ray. X-ray shows you the movement here and here and here. So you see what's actually, you see the values changing in real time. Okay, that's pretty awesome, the way you see the information. Distortion lead. like this slow, it reminds me kind of a sync sound, but it's not. It's totally not a sync sound. That's using the modulation. That's using the sequencer. So I was just explaining to you how much stuff I could send to the same destination. So this one is modulating mostly the filter, not the note itself. Let's listen to some of the sound that they made. So there's a lot of really nice sound, and I like the fact that it's not using filter at all. I like the fact that you can use this, and it forces you to explore because of these controls here, and these options here, and the divisions, and the LFOs. I mean, the envelope to control this can be LFO instead of something else. So it totally opens up the door to something else than you're used to. And then you forget about keys, because that's not what you're doing. You're using a sequencer or events or controllers to trigger different part of the sound. So this seems to be more of a modular thinking, whereas it's, I mean, it can play the keys like what we're doing right now, but it can be really, really aimed at making drone sounds and scapes of sounds. And oh yes, that's what I wanted to show you. The out. This is really cool. You can output the envelope to a channel and MIDI controller. By doing that, you're sending the envelope number 1 to something else in your studio, and it becomes just a MIDI control to control whatever it is you want. So you have 4 of them you can send in real time. You have the envelope 1, envelope 2, LFO, and note that you're sending. So this becomes, and remember that the note can be triggered from the sequencer. So this whole thing can become a controller for an external hardware device. So that's pretty awesome. I like this notion that this is not a closed system. This is made to control. That's why I'm saying this is more of kind of a modular thinking. Think of this as part of a bigger thing, and it's pretty awesome. So that's it. Now, if you want to win this, because the nice people at Numerical Audio gave me an extra code to give away. If you want to win this, you have to follow the link in the description that goes to the draw, and you need to do actions. You know, follow the YouTube channel, watch a Facebook, whatever it is. So for every of these actions, you get an entry for the prize draw. That's it. So if you like what I'm doing, thumb up. If you want a t-shirt, go ahead. Go on the store and find a little, again, the store is in the description. And see you soon, guys. Cheers.